Welcome to the Go Out Living Attitude, a cancer survivor's journey through health and wellness, helping others search for the tools to bring us a healthier and happier lifestyle. Hi, everyone. Jonathan Brandt, Go Out Living. We have a very special guest today. We have Jeanne Grant. She's the executive director of the Lyme Revive Foundation and representing Mineral RX. Welcome, Jeanne. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what resonated with me was your story, and I just feel like a lot of people suffer like you did, and I thought we'd get started with you uh, giving us a little hint of how you got into what you're now into.
It started, probably. So I have 5 children, and we built a house in 2006 and on the river in Virginia, moved to the country and had a horse farm. And at that point in time when we moved, like I was pretty active. I ran 4 times a week. I worked out at the gym, and we were just, a happy-go-lucky family. And slowly, I just started getting fatigued. I got back pains. I had had headaches my whole life, but just periodically, I got really bad headaches, and it was just kind of mysterious. We also had one child that had issues all growing up. And I was always trying to figure her out. But anyhow, I just slowly got, more and more tired and just couldn't do things. Thankfully for my husband, he tried to do a lot of research thinking, oh, it's hormonal, you're heading towards menopause, just trying to find all these different things. Well, he did recommend through a business friend for headaches to go to a chiropractor. And so I went to the chiropractor. Well, I took my daughter as well. And I even had, I had joint pains. I was started to have like some skin conditions, like itching. And anyhow, so I took my daughter to the chiropractor, and we would go once or twice a week. And at one visit one day, I mentioned bringing my 10-year-old son. And the chiropractor looked at me and he goes, your 10-year-old son? He goes, I think you guys have Lyme disease because a 10-year-old doesn't have back problems. And I was like, oh, and we lived in a community where I had 2 very dear friends, actually 3 in my Bible study. Well, one of them, anyhow, I was exposed to 3 people that had Lyme, and actually one of them told me she thought I had it. And I was like, no, I don't. I had no idea. Anyhow, I went, so my friends helped me because, it's a very mysterious thing, but my friends guided me what tests to get, which were expensive, and mine came back positive. And so then I had to go through trying to find a doctor. And this was in 2014, and there weren't very many, and the waiting lists were long, and the criteria to get in, you had to write an essay and and then be willing to pay like $5,000 for your first appointment to be on their diet and run their tests. And it was actually very scary. And the waiting lists were like a year long. Well, I by accident got into my girlfriend's doctor. They had a cancellation right when I called. And so the receptionist gave it to me. But like my first appointment was $800. And then they wanted to run more tests, which was another $2,500. So, long and short, I ended up with antibiotic treatment with 2 different Lyme literate doctors, getting sicker and sicker. And in the meantime, we realized that my 3 of my 5 had it. They were suicidal. They had Bartonella. And we went the antibiotic route. Well, and we did Rife machine, essential oils, herbal. We did everything. And we all just got sicker. And they ended up not being able to go to school. And what was really scary was that my children were suicidal. We found out my oldest was a heroin addict, deep into drugs. right before we did get help. And so it was very, it was devastating to our family because we basically lost our life together as a family in your, your core years. And my daughter was 17. And so at the time, so really the ironic thing is I thought, oh, when I go to my first appointment, I'm going to be better. Well, little did I know that was the beginning of a complete nightmare. And just of complete no hope, getting sicker and sicker, our family falling apart. And at the time, my husband worked for a big global law firm, and he is not an attorney. He headed up business development. And in that role, he would help companies get venture capital. He worked with a lot of startups, and he'd guide them and connect them and get them capital. And so he was pretty popular because he didn't bill, but then they become clients. And so anyhow, he met these guys that had a cure for cancer. And at the time, it was melanoma. It was a cream for melanoma. Well, they came in to meet with the patent attorneys. And while they were waiting on the attorney, my husband, and we had just found out about my daughter. And when they came in and they were talking, he was like, oh, do you know anything about Lyme disease? You know cancer. Do you know anything about Lyme? And the one looked at him, and then, he always told the story. As soon as I took a step, I knew what would work. And and basically he had formulated the formula that they put in the cream. He had created a form to nebulize for somebody that had systemic melanoma. So he just in his mind was like, oh, I bet that would work, because by nebulizing, you fumigate your body head to toe. And these are minerals, and so they cross the blood-brain barrier and they get in your brain. And you got to kill them in the brain, and that's where a lot of them fall short. Long and short, we got better, and it was a long road. Like Lyme is, and we'd had it a long time. So, and when you have mental stuff, it's really the mental stuff that takes a long time. Like my joint stuff cleared up in like 6 months. And my sleep issues and a lot of stuff, but the anxiety coming and going, you have to rewire the brain. And, and it did rewire like on its own. So it was a tough recovery where you just got more and more good days. So on the bad days, you wonder, I'm not better, even though like 90% of your symptoms are gone, everything's relative. So anyhow, these guys ended up, they were so intrigued with Lyme. They were scientists. They just started studying it. So I worked with them for like over 5 years, and we brought in some doctors and people and basically studied it. And what they learned pretty quick was that it's in your saliva. They went and they talked to, so it's a spirochete. So they just Googled who's the spirochete expert. And it was an oral surgeon in California. And I think he just died. But anyhow, they literally called him up and talked to him. And the guy was like, hey, yeah, I look at their saliva under the microscope. I see the spirochetes. And these people have serious oral issues, like they need root canals and, even have jaws that are disintegrating and stuff. And he said, I can, chlorhexidine works. Clorox kills them, but you can't, people can't have that. He goes, but what's really weird is I can get rid of it, look at the saliva under the microscope, it's gone, but then the next visit it's back. And so my guys were like, oh, it's systemic. It's in the fluids, because as you know, the blood tests are inaccurate. They're not in the blood. And the immune system gets broken. And so it's, they're looking for antibodies, but that's not an accurate way either. And so anyhow, so what they did was they looked at my family's saliva, and the ones who did the minerals didn't have them, but everybody else did that we didn't know had it. So we learned, and like over the years when we would test families, everybody had it. But it doesn't mean they're hurting you necessarily. But what it meant for us was really you need to treat the family, or that person that has a weakness for it can get sick again, and they can get symptomatic just being around you. So we had to treat whole families. And for example, my husband had no symptoms. But he did it for me, and it was like 8 months later. And I didn't get reinfected in that 8 months. But, it's something that over time. But I do think I would have felt better, probably, if we had known. So in the last 5 years, the inventor, he was in his 80s, and he loved my husband. And he basically came to him and he goes, I really want to put, we need to get it patented. And, I'm going to die. I need to get this to the world. So he goes, I want to put it in a foundation. And so my husband helped with all of that. And said, if we can create a foundation, we can put it here in Lyme Revive or another foundation, whatever you want, but just know whatever you want, I will do what your wishes are, because so many people tried to steal it and the trade secret, and he had made some deals out there where the contracts were really broken because the people did not get the funding that they so many people wanted to take it to market, and for other things like fertilizer, and because it's minerals. And so anyhow, we were able to get it. He gave it to the foundation. The law firm, the top patent attorney, knew all about it, and he saw, like, one of the patent attorney's son was dying and was helped. And, they knew a lot, they knew about it. And so they took it on as a pro bono client. And so it's been patented for free, and which is, a complete miracle of God. And so now, Lyme Revive has, is basically there to help with Lyme, and it helps with a lot of other health issues. And that has been licensed to a separate corporation that will get it to the world. And so right now it's in some universities. We're doing studies. We just finished a study on Lyme in a clinic. In fact, I got results yesterday. And so it's pretty exciting. Well, and one other thing. So it used to be where you had to nebulize, which is very hard. And it used to cost $4,000 for 2 months, which is devastating, especially if you have to treat a family. Like, people, like, we sold it and it wasn't in my control. But it was really hard. I would try and get it to people for free that that could, but I didn't own it. So, but in the past couple years, we now have an oral dose, and you don't have to nebulize. Nebulizing, it hurts your throat. It's, nothing compared to putting it in water and drinking it. and the oral dose helps many other issues that if you nebulized it wouldn't. So it's pretty amazing, So that changed everything for me in growing my foundation, because I couldn't tell people to nebulize. You have to be a doctor, and that was very limiting. So I had to just wait for people to come to me. But now I can have instructions on the website, if people read them. That's another thing. But so
Well,
that's
it's all about getting the word out. Yeah.
Yeah. And my daughter that had the drug issue, she completely recovered and went to college. And I wonder, these, drug addictions, it was self-medicating because the Lyme and the Bartonella, it's very mentally, like you're basically mentally ill. And, because they're in your brain. So,
I don't want to totally go back to the beginning, but part of what resonates with me as well is being misdiagnosed or just completely ignoring what it possibly can be. And that resonates with me because of Christy, my wife, who for years they either misdiagnosed or simply said, there's nothing wrong with you. It's a mental issue. Move on. Is there a way that
and
we
I
can
had that.
change? Yeah.
I didn't go get into that, but yeah, I'd go to the doctor. Oh, you have 5 kids,
Yeah.
and it's like, no,
So how do we change that part of it? Because, okay, we can use the minerals now, but how do we even get people to that point? That's the hard part, isn't it? Is recognizing we have an issue. We probably know it. Our gut, tells us we have it, but we need a proof somehow.
yeah, I think too, I mean, that's kind of why we've gone to get studies because people don't believe. Like, even when I tell them, like, I'll have some cancer patients come to me and they just don't really believe it. Because it's hard to believe given our pharmaceutical, you know, world. um, I would say what you're doing. And I think with technology nowadays, like, and the other thing that's really cool is AI. Even though it kind of doesn't know everything. Like if you
That's like
ask,
all of us, though.
well, just for example, if you ask it questions about Lyme, there's a lot that I've learned and know that you don't find in the CDC or even AI, and that's very discouraging. Um, so I think people's stories getting out and doing what you're doing, they can go viral, right? And they can be on Instagram and maybe with the algorithms, it can get out more because I watch YouTube and I know it's not all, you know, completely true, but um people have a lot more at their fingertips nowadays, whereas in the past they didn't. At like and people are like all the Lyme people, they're like more knowledgeable than the doctors with what's going on with their bodies nowadays, right?
But that's because the doctors don't really have a say in it, unless the pharmaceutical wants to come out with something, it's not part of their practice.
You know, they say there's a vaccine coming out now. The last one gave everybody Lyme. It literally, it gave it to them. They had to pull it. I don't know. I wouldn't take it. But,
Yeah, we've just gone
a
down the
family
wrong
member
road.
might because they don't know.
Yeah. We've just gone down the wrong road for so long, and it's trying to change people's minds through, like you said, through the podcast, through YouTube, through whatever means, because there's a lot of people out there that are truly trying to help. And a lot of it's because we've all gone through it in some way.
Well, and most Lyme doctors have somebody in their family that went through it. And if you go to a infectious disease doctor, they're taught, they must be taught that it doesn't exist and that it's a hoax, that the doctors are trying to make money. But I believe, I mean, there aren't many that do help people. There just aren't. But I believe they're all trying and they all want to. They are not just trying to rip people off. And what I've seen in dealing with Lyme people for 11 years now, I've dealt with a lot. I've coached so many people. And the people I've come across that have gotten help that didn't have Minerals RX, they went to a doctor that worked on their immune system and built the immune system back up. And if you're not too far gone and you can do that, your immune system can help you. Like, we have the most amazing bodies. And that's what I see for Lyme. The few people I know, and they're still like saying, well, I'm in remission, because it is underlying, but, um, yeah, going to some doctors can help in that respect. And they're a lot more holistic, but you have to pay out of pocket. Insurance isn't covered. And, we had 4 going to private doctors, and it was, I mean, we were going broke.
Well, yeah, I mean, doctors will go with the insurance companies, but it doesn't mean it's going to heal you or help you in any way. So, yeah, it's now trying to find that alternative.
Well, the
Here's
other
what I
thing
don't
too, I think, is that when you go to a doctor and they give you something, they don't really tell you the side effects or what's happening, because even like, for example, for my husband, he had sleep issues and they diagnosed Klonopin. Well, that's a benzo. That's really addictive. He had no idea. In fact, the doctor said, don't look at the side effects. And then when he went, and it helped him, helped his sleep. But when he went to get his pilot's license, when I was bedridden and he needed something to do, he listed it and they're like, no. And he had to get off it. And it's harder than heroin. Like, it's really, really, really bad. So did he know? No. And it really, those things are, it's just like even the chemo, you know?
well, and the worst part is you sit there, you can't say you don't know the side effects because they tell you, but you ignore it because it's like, oh, it's just part of what you have to go through. I mean, there's just no other options. So you just ignore it. And that's
Right.
not
You think,
true. That's the
well, you
worst
just don't
part.
really think of the heart. Yeah.
And you're in a situation where you're just trying to survive. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do what it takes. You don't think about the after effects. You don't think about the side effects. You don't think about, okay, I solved this problem, but I have more issues ahead of me for a long time. It can really destroy a person's
Yes.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we talk about person that, okay, we find out we have Lyme disease. Number one, where does it come from? Let's start with that because we didn't really discuss that. We know we can get it from each other, but I've always thought it was a tick thing.
Which it is. I mean, it's not all ticks. I mean, it's very mysterious. We did get, I think, we had tick bites. We moved to the country, but I believe it's environmental. They say it's in mosquitoes. It has passed from the birds who eat the ticks and it's like passed around. And I believe it's environmental, like mold, just for example. If you test a person's body for mold, they'll have some kind of, you breathe it in places, like it has evidence in your body. I believe that Lyme is the same thing, and some of the co-infections. And mainly because we have a special testing system that we use, or I have access to through a doctor that I've learned about. And really, if you test anybody for Lyme, like when I'm working with people and we're going through the whole healing thing, in this testing, we don't run the Lyme panel because everybody will have it. We run a test that says, what's the body battling right now? And then if the Lyme shows up or co-infection, you're like, okay, we need to address that. But if it doesn't, you don't. Kind of like my husband, he wouldn't have had the Lyme show up as. So the fact that most people would show up with it tells me it's environmental, because they say it can go very dormant. It could be dried up for like decades and then come alive. I don't think we really know enough, but what I've learned, it's a spirochete. It looks like a little snake. Loves the head, loves the brain. Um, and it's anaerobic. What I see with people getting sick is most of them have you ever heard of the MTHFR factor?
I have not.
So I would just have people always say, I have the MTHFR factor. I have the MTHFR factor, which means it's a gene mutation. 4% of Americans have it, where you don't methylate, you really don't process vitamin Bs. And so the two main things that happen with that, number one, you don't detox right. So you kind of get clogged. You have a tendency to be more sick because you're not getting rid of toxins. And the other thing is you get anxiety and you can't turn it off. They just did a study in Israel on it. And really, and I think that's underneath the Lyme. And those people tend to get it. But what happens is a lot of times it comes in through trauma. And so people with MTHFR factor can't turn off anxiety. So if they have a traumatic event, they're in fight or flight and they can't turn it off. And then your whole body chemistry is out of whack. Like even finding out you had cancer. Okay, that is hugely traumatic. And your system nowadays with our diets, like I think there's so many different factors where we just stop functioning normally. The body's out of balance. And then those infections can take over. So they're all around, but now your body can't fight them. So I believe, just in my experience, that we're dealing with some of that too. Like they got a mosquito bite. I've had people say, yeah, I went to the dentist and I was never the same after that. Like I had a root canal. And the thing too, the dentists, I mean, they're dealing in people's mouths. There's so many infections in the mouth is, and they have the highest, they say they have the highest suicide rate, which I'm thinking, oh, you have, you're just right there. And, even talking to somebody, you can have exposure, not that that's going to be enough, but also there's syphilis. It's very contagious. Syphilis is a spirochete. A Borrelia is a spirochete. They say that in lupus, which is an autoimmune, they test for spirochetes, like secretly. Because my mother had that. She had rheumatoid arthritis, but then she kind of had MS and lupus, She did the minerals. We did her saliva test. She had Lyme. And you know what? She did the minerals in her late 70s and went into remission because it was Lyme. And she's in her 80s now. And she's been in remission ever since. So it wasn't. And the doctors told her she was going to Walter Reed. They were like, we were testing you for 12 years for syphilis, for lupus, and you don't have it. So if you look at syphilis, it's called the kissing disease. And so syphilis is the spirochetes of treponeme, and it looks a lot like Lyme. Like the doctors have a really hard time deciphering. And when we were looking at saliva, it took a long time to figure out. One's flatter, one's rounder, and they swim a little different. And dentists think that they're okay. There's actually more treponeme than Borrelia in most people, like even when we looked at samples, but they're not okay. Like they go to your heart, they're in your whole system. So the key is your immune system. And so I don't think it's like you were saying, where does it originate? Well, it's kind of environmental now. And actually they just released the government documents, like in the last month, saying that, oh, we put out, I think they admit to putting it in mosquitoes and sending them out to test on people to see how they would do. I mean, they just released that, which people have always, and we lived 20 minutes from Fort Detrick, which is the bio warfare capital of Army. So, and that's what everybody in our area had it, but didn't know. And really, I couldn't tell them,
Right.
because it's better not to even really know if you don't think they're going to get better, because then you're like, oh, I have it. And then, then you give it permission almost to be,
Yeah, it gets in your head, and now all of a sudden you're sick, and yeah.
yeah. And then you're like, oh, I have this, that
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, there is something to that. It's like the placebo. And then,
Yeah, and it sounds like the symptoms are just endless with Lyme disease. So that's kind of why you're saying it's probably in everybody because everybody has a symptom of it in some way.
yeah. And, all the autoimmune issues, like just for example, we're working with a couple Alzheimer's patients, and, we can run these tests. And so these people that have these other issues, it's like, oh, no, it's Lyme.
Well, and
You
that's
know.
like you said in here, chronic illness. You can go get tested all you want, but there's probably an underlying factor that we're not catching, like Lyme disease.
Well, and I think I really am now, I mean, just in the past year, after all these years, I'm like, I think MTHFR is under it. Even if half the people have that and they can't turn off their anxiety. And really, for that, you need to take methylated vitamins, and don't eat anything with folic acid, because folic acid is man-made and it helps the people that don't have it, but it's like poison. It makes you, lose your mind if you do have it. And it's very expensive to get the testing too, which we offer really cheap because it's very easy to do. So yeah, I mean, going back to thinking that once I would go to the doctor, I'm like, oh, I mean, finding out isn't enough nowadays, because they don't really look at, oh, you have high blood pressure. Let me give you this for the rest of your life. Instead of, why do you have high blood pressure? What's going on there?
That root cause.
That root
That's
cause. And, oh, you need to eat better. What are you eating? What's your hygiene? Are you working out? You know,
Yeah, we're starting to recognize all our faults for the last
but we've been
several
programmed.
years. We
When
have.
you look,
Yeah.
when you look at the pyramid, it's upside down. Okay, totally upside down. I have a niece that got uh, diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. Well, if you go to the website, they tell you what they tell you to eat is what you're not to eat. Okay, what's up with that? What's up with this upside down pyramid? I'm sorry. That's why, people are misinformed. The seed oils, I mean, or don't eat fats. you know, Everything has I mean, if you eat anything processed, you're poisoning your body. And it's really hard to eat whole foods in our day and age, which we try and do. But then you're like, oh, I'm in a hurry. I don't have time. And then, you crave the bread. But
Well,
it's all,
it's funny. You can even go to the grocery store, and I found an app that I use, and I gave it to my dad. And I go scan what you like. He came back just completely, he couldn't believe at all the stuff that's in what we would consider healthy. Breads. We're because it basically gives you a out of 100, and he was getting some really crazy numbers for stuff he thought was healthy. But that's the hard part, is there's not a lot organic anymore, or that doesn't have herbicides on it, or it doesn't have all, like you said, is overly
Well,
processed.
like the wheat is GMO, like
Yes.
they modified it. That's why everybody's like gluten intolerant because our bodies do not read that. They modified it. And then they added folic acid.
Yep.
They enriched it. They stripped it
All the
of all the
Yep.
goodness and then added enrichments that poison us.
Yep, all the preservatives, all the additives, it never ends, and
And
that's
it's
why it's so difficult for me to eat healthy. I mean, we can take accountability for ourselves and say, "Okay, this is what we're gonna eat," but it doesn't necessarily mean it's that great either.
well, it's a process.
Yeah.
It's really a process where you're like, okay, I'm going to start here.
Mhm.
Because if you go to cold turkey, you probably will have carbohydrate illness,
Yeah,
withdrawal
right.
illness, like you literally get the flu and um you just have to do it a little bit at a
Yeah,
time because it's our society's not set up for it.
and what
So,
I keep
so
saying,
those
it's
are foundational issues.
right. And what
I
I keep
think
saying, it's a lifestyle. You don't need to change it overnight. It's recognizing it, but then taking those small steps to ultimately, you wanna live
yeah,
as long as you can,
if
and
you
you
want to
just take one
yeah.
step at a time to get there. It took you this long to get to this point, for me, 50, almost 51 years. I got another 50 years to go to get it right, is how I look at it.
Yes. And it's a journey. It's a journey. And then as you start feeling a little better, but I think a lot of it's been put on us. And so that's the sad part is and I think COVID just woke a lot up to where we're like, wait a minute, and then with the computer age and technology, we're like, oh,
Yeah.
what? No way.
Well, people
So
are recognizing more and more people that have what they have because we're doing this and because it's all over, like you said, YouTube or Spotify or whatever platform you're looking at. It's becoming a thing because we all have it, and we're tired of listening to the other side. Not saying they're bad people. I mean, there's a lot of doctors that really mean well. The
I
system
think
is just
so. It's
broken.
it's our system, and yeah, I do believe the doctors. I mean, they go into it because they want to help people.
Mhm.
They really do, and they're limited by what they're taught. But also, like the doctor I work with right now, she was an RN. She actually worked at NIH, even under Fauci, kind of, and she she didn't like the system, the doctor system, so she left and got her became got her doctorate in naturopath and doesn't uh she doesn't prescribe, but it's like, oh, okay, well, here's the natural things you can do that work, even that nat we have so many things that are naturally healing
Well,
that
we can sit there and
actually,
go back thousands of years that herbs have been in our lives for thousands of years.
like castor
It's right.
oil.
Right.
All these things that
Exactly.
worked.
Yeah, exactly. And we're coming back. We are. We're starting to recognize all
Yeah.
that. I hope so. I don't want people to go what I went through, what Christy went through.
What I went through.
It's yeah, exactly.
And
It's a
families,
hard
it's
road.
whole families. It's not
It's
just one person. It
no.
affects and it affects every family in America. If
And
you
it's
look
not
at it,
just
there's always
financial. Yeah, it's not just financial, it's mental, it's physical, it's tough. I mean, either way you look at it, it can be very difficult.
yeah, and supporting each other, you know.
So you have in here, what message of hope would you give someone who feels like they have tried everything?
Um well, so the formula that we have really um it just happened, and like the inventor said, it just happened to kill spirochetes. It does a lot. It's actually electrical. Like it's not biological. Minerals are the foundation of the body. This formula, it's a trade secret. It's very difficult to create. Um, but it's pretty miraculous. But what we're seeing in people, like even in this Lyme study we just did, it actually affected each person when we looked at their systems. It helped them where they needed it. It eliminated infections layer by layer, helped them where they needed it. And it's what our immune system needs to to do it. So it basically gives it the electrical energy. It's terrain based, where it's by charge. It goes to the area that needs help the most. And just for example, we're just figuring it out because we have this really good testing. Worked with 2 men with prostate cancer, and they were stage 1 was 3, 1 was 4. Go get operated, lose your manhood, go now. And it took about 6 months to eliminate for the PSAs to come normal. And then Lyme was the next issue. Underneath that, on these 2 particular gentlemen, and then it eliminated the Lyme. So it's very interesting. So it went where it was needed. And literally all you have to do is take 20 drops a day. Although interesting thing is, if you have Lyme, you got to go slow because you don't detox. You're like clogged up, and you can't have too much die off or you will hurt. Everybody's different, but we're like, start with 1 drop. But if you're cancer, it's not systemic. It's like you can start with 20, 40, 60 drops, and it won't matter. Which shows you what Lyme, does. So there is hope. There is hope for getting better. And, there are cases that are too far gone, where your body's just too far down. And the longer, there are a lot of people. I have like a handful of women I'm working with that have had it 40 years. They're 8 months in, and they're like, I'm not feeling any better. I mean, they are, but not enough. And it's
Right.
because they had it 40 years and they have a long way to come back. And their infections are being eliminated, but more layers show up because, the longer you've been sick with Lyme, the more infections you get because they're environmental and your body can't handle them. Like people can't even go next to a plug because they can't stand the EMF, or they can't, smell a dryer running. It's the longer you've had it, the more infections you have, the longer it takes.
Because you
But
gotta
there's
get rid of every infection first, basically.
Well, and the other thing too is there's other things like I spend my time helping people even with their symptoms as they're recovering, like anxiety. There's so many natural things you can take. And so, with Lyme, you got to be careful. You don't with people with the minerals, we're like, you don't want to be on those 30 supplements because, they just take more and more, like they're hoping. There's a point where it's way overburdened. So we're like, take your vitamin, methylated vitamin, probiotics, enzymes, magnesium to sleep. You can take these things, to start. And then as you go down the road, you can add some. But you want to help the symptoms as much as you can without burdening the body more. So, but my foundation, my whole goal is to help families because I've seen so many devastated families. And the original reason I started it was there were so many, old parents with 40 and 50-year-old kids they were buying it for. And so I created it. I'm a CPA by nature, education. But I created the foundation so they could pay the foundation. The foundation could buy the formula and they would get a write-off for taxes, at least something.
Right.
So people could donate for people because it was $4,000, which is But you need, so there is hope. Um, there's hope, but you got to get tested to make sure, like, you know.
Right. Well, and like you said, there's probably some big possibilities that this can help other things. And I'm guessing you guys will be testing and continuously testing to find out what those are as well.
Yeah. I believe the autoimmune issues are the body actually killing these Lyme and co-infections. They're literally trying. It's not attacking itself, like thyroid. Lyme people, like almost every Lyme patient has a thyroid. So if somebody's like, and you know, I was the other thing that's really interesting is if you look at all these, like, oh, if you have a thyroid problem, if you look up the symptoms, it's all Lyme.
Who knew? I mean, we've all heard of it for, well, ever since I can remember, but it just
Until it
stops right
hits you
there.
or your
Okay,
family,
right.
you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not. Although with Kennedy in in the health realm now, he knows. He's from Connecticut. You know, he knows about Lyme, Connecticut. The whole East Coast is, so hopefully I'm hoping to be connected to him eventually because there is great hope. And we, just in our study, 8 out of 8, 8 out of 8.
It's
But you
amazing.
got to keep going. And it varied. It varied as to when it all depended on them because some, are new. They don't have much. They're fine in 30 days. Others are like a year, two, maybe, you know.
We're all different. Our bodies are all different. It will take, yeah, it's,
And our habits are different.
yes,
Our
very
habits are
much so.
different. Our where we start out were different. The infections, like it's so variable and
Yeah.
genetically.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, Jeanne Grant, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm an executive director of the Lyme Revive Foundation and representing Mineral RX. Everybody needs to go check it out. And I'll do a blog post along with this episode so you know where to find it all. But it has been a complete pleasure. It's been educational for me. I didn't know.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It's been awesome. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Oh, you're very welcome. And this isn't the end. We're gonna definitely do this again in some way. So I
Okay,
really
awesome.
appreciate I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you coming on. And for all of you guys out there, please go check out. It's the Lyme Revive Foundation, and she represents Mineral RX as well because I think it's a really important for so many people. I really do. All right.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Of course. Thank you so much. And for all of you, thank you for watching. Remember, find the attitude, keep the attitude, go out living. Bye, everyone.